drive carefully on the way out of here. Let's call today's meeting to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Regent President Walsh.
Here.
Regent Vice President Bogus.
Here.
Regent Adams.
Here.
Regent Atwell. Regent Bechtel. Regent Cologne.
Here.
Regent Jones.
Here.
Regent Manydeeds. Regent Miller.
Here.
Regent Posh. Regent Peterson.
Here.
Regent Rye.
Here.
Regent Staton.
Here.
Regent Tucker. Regent Underling.
Here.
Regent Locks.
Here.
And Regent Weatherly.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there board members who wish to declare any conflicts of interest regarding today's open session agenda?
Yes, I would like to declare a conflict of interest out of an abundance of caution. I will be abstaining from D3 in capital plan.
Thank you very much, Regent Weatherly. Anyone else? All right, seeing none. Let's see. Regent Miller, it looks like it's your ball game to present a report from the Joint Audit and Business and Finance Committee meeting.
Morning. The Audit Committee and the Business and Finance Committee met jointly early yesterday morning for the purpose of receiving and presenting the UW System Draft Annual Financial Report for 2022. The report was presented by staff from the UW System Office of Financial Administration. It notes that UW System's total net position stands at $6.4 billion, an increase of nearly $400 million over the prior year, largely due to investments in capital assets and an increase in projected earnings in the restricted net position asset management by the Department of Employee Trust Funds. Other notable changes include a $61 million increase in endowment investments and a value of $530 million due to market fluctuations over the course of the year. The pandemic and its after effects also account for differences relative to the prior year, as a return to more normal campus activity levels led to operating revenue increase in areas like auxiliary services and athletics. The report also touches on the cash management fund established with this board's approval last year, citing it as an example of revenue diversification opportunities being pursued by UW System. As expressed in the report, UW System continues to prioritize responsible financial stewardship. The application of best practices developed during the pandemic and the implementation of the strategic plan will further drive operational innovations to address current and new challenges in support of the system's mission. With no further action required of the committee or the board, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Miller. And I think we're keeping the puck in your area and you're going to report on the audit committee.
Double header, I'll use a different analogy. The audit committee also met yesterday morning. The Chief Audit Executive Lori Stortz reviewed the progress to date on the fiscal year 2023 audit plan. She confirmed that her office is making solid progress on the plan with a number of audits currently in progress. She expects to bring a number of reports to the committee when we meet again in February. Ms. Stortz then provided a high-level summary of the results of audits recently issued by the Office of Internal Audit since we met last in September. This included the NCAA compliance audit for UW-Madison, the executive summaries for the payroll continuous audit and the purchasing card continuous audit. The NCAA compliance audit for UW-Madison was successful and there were no findings. The payroll continuous audit results were very good in general, and it is hoped that the ATP automation will help in this area when it is implemented. The purchasing card continuous audit revealed the number of active purchasing cards and the amount of outstanding credit rose very slightly from the previous year, which is attributed to operations returning to normal post-pandemic. Purchases of gift cards remains an area for improvement, but considering the volume of purchasing cards we have in use, Ms. Stortz felt the results were solid. Next, UW-Madison Police Department Chief of Police, Kristen Roman, and Director of Emergency Management, Suzanne Brandt, presented an update on UW System emergency planning and management. They outlined upcoming steps to the program, such as updating UW System emergency management standard and conducting an audit. The emergency management staff plan to return to the practice of campus visits during the upcoming year and are working to increase training for UW System staff. Ms. Brandt also stated that they are working on creating a plan to put in service a crisis call center to provide support across the UW system. The committee then heard from Director of Procurement, Brett Tilton, who gave an update on Shop UW Plus internal controls and hazardous materials management. Mr. Tilton reported that Shop UW Plus has transformed the purchasing and accounts payable systems and has been proven to help the processes of all across the system. He demonstrated many of the features of the system and explained that we are currently in phase 2, the stabilization stage. Mr. Tilton then highlighted the Chem Manager Plus system, which is an inventory tracking tool that tracks the entire life cycle of chemicals. This is currently in place at several campuses and full deployment is expected through 2023. Regent Weatherly requested that a postmortem be held once Shop UW Plus has been completed to confirm that if expectations have been met and evaluate whether we are getting a fair and equitable pricing from our vendors. Lastly, we heard from Chief Compliance Officer Paige Smith, who discussed the annual report of Regent Policy Document 4-21, Commitment to Academic Freedom and Freedom of Expression. This policy covers all students, staff, and visitors. Ms. Smith stated the notice of this policy is provided to new students and staff and is promoted on the campus level. Free speech remains central to our higher education mission. The Regents thank the participants for all they are doing for the institutions and the UW system. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Miller. And pinch hitting for Regent Bechtel, we have Regent Jones reporting on the Business and Finance Committee.
Thank you very much, Regent President Walsh. The Business and Finance Committee convened yesterday morning and after approving the minutes of our November meeting, proceeded with its agenda as follows. First, the committee approved UW-Madison's proposal to adjust tuition rates for the next 2 academic years for certain graduate and professional degree programs, including business masters, law, Doctor of Medicine, healthcare professional program, and Doctor of Veterinary Sciences. In addition, the School of Pharmacy will move to a tuition model that charges a flat rate across all 4 program years. These increases either approach or maintain price competitiveness with peer institutions. The use of the resulting revenue varies by program, but will include enhanced student services and scholarships, technology upgrades in laboratories and classrooms, and recruitment and retention of top faculty. Next, the committee approved the creation of an optional new non-resident Midwest tuition rate for both undergraduate and graduate students beginning with the 2023-24 academic year. This initiative is modeled off the Midwest Student Exchange Program, or MSP, in which members of the Midwestern Higher Education Compact agree to charge non-resident students no more than 150% of the resident tuition rate for selected programs. Wisconsin enjoys high rates of in-migration of MSEP students, but with fewer out-of-state institutions participating in MSEP, this will allow the UW system institutions the option of utilizing this tuition rate to continue to attract non-resident students to our universities. The committee then approved a UW system purchase of software and services that will allow for rapid and consistent testing of the workday software associated with the Administrative Transformation Program. This is a 5-year agreement with Kainos WorkSmart at a total cost of $2.3 million. Next, the committee approved an addition to the UW system strategic IT plan. This project will establish a system-wide identity and access management platform that simplifies access for campus users for system-level applications, streamlines the flow of identity information between the UW system and the UW institutions, and improves campus-led identity management practices. Adoption is expected to provide additional campus-level opportunities to eliminate duplicative technology solutions for significant cost savings. This project is estimated at $5.5 million distributed over 3 years. Next, the committee approved the collective bargaining agreement negotiated between UW System and the Building and Construction Trades Council of South Central Wisconsin, or BTC. The parties negotiated for a 4.7 increase in base wages consistent with the Consumer Price Index, effective January 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2023. At an annualized incremental cost of $455,000, including salary and fringes. The terms of this contract are consistent with those between BTC and both the Department of Administration and UW-Madison. The committee also approved the collective bargaining agreement between the UW-Madison and the Trade Council under the same terms and conditions as the UW system, as just described. Next, the committee approved proposed adjustments to the salary ranges of certain senior executive positions throughout the system, effective for the biennium beginning July 1st, 2023. The recommendations are based on peer salary data, and as a result of that analysis, the midpoint of these salary ranges increases from between 0% to 7.7%. These adjustments impact only salary ranges, not the actual compensation provided to those in these positions. The committee then received the annual report on faculty turnover, which provides a summary of faculty departures attributed to retirement, resignation, and non-renewed contracts over the previous year. The 296 faculty members who left the UW system in fiscal year 2022 represent 5.4% of all faculty in the system. Of those departures, 55% retired and 40% resigned. Notably, the percentage of those citing salary-related job change as the reason for their departure increased from about 3% in FY21 to 7% in FY22. We also received the annual report on faculty and staff base salary adjustments and additional compensation payments. This report includes high-level summary comparisons for the last 5 fiscal years. Fiscal year 2022 data shows significant increases in the percentages of all staff receiving base salary adjustments and one-time compensation payments, particularly compared to last year, and are largely reflective of a targeted effort by institutions to offer post-pandemic merit pay or elevated minimum pay. We concluded with a presentation by Trust Funds Executive Director Chuck Saunders on the quarterly investment report for the period ending September 30th. As of that date, the UW System Trust Fund assets totaled $525 million, comprised of $485 million in long-term fund and $40 million in income cash fund. For the quarter, the long-term fund, not surprisingly, decreased in value of 5.9%, while the income cash fund gained 0.51%. In conclusion, and on behalf of the Business and Finance Committee, I now move for adoption of agenda items D, E, F, G, H, and I, and separately move for approval of item J as a standalone vote.
Okay, thank you, Regent Jones. We have a motion to adopt the other actions other than Resolution J approved by the Business and Finance Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? What? Oh, sorry, Jill. Oh,
Oh, no,
That
I was
scared
just me a
saying,
little. Aye. That's all.
okay. Don't worry about it.
Sorry.
Okay, recovering our composure. Next, we have the motion passes. Next, we have a motion to adopt Resolution J, adopting salary ranges for senior executives for the 2023-25 biennium. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. All right, this requires a roll call vote. Megan, please call the roll.
Regent President Walsh.
Aye.
Regent Vice President Bogus. Regent Adams.
Aye.
Regent Atwell. Regent Bechtel. Regent Cologne.
Aye.
Regent Jones.
Aye.
Regent Menedes. Regent Miller.
Aye.
Regent Posh. Regent Peterson.
Aye.
Regent Rye.
Aye.
Regent Staton. Regent Tucker. Regent Underly.
Aye.
Regent Walks.
Aye.
Regent Weatherly.
Aye.
And the motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone. Now with an open net to Regent Weatherly for the report of the Education Committee.
All right. I have some sports analogies in here, but I'm just.
Well, it's a
gonna
bit of a
strike them.
sport driving in today, as in bumper cars.
That's true. Thank you, Regent President Walsh. At our meeting yesterday, the Education Committee approved 2 programs: an academic unit realignment, the Wisconsin Partnership Program Oversight Board nominations, and discussed strategic enrollment, specifically credit for prior learning and dual enrollment strategies. We were also fortunate to have been joined by legislators Senator Mary Fiskowski, and Representative Dave Murphy, as we seek to build relationships and work together in the future. Committee items, including approval of the September meeting minutes. Excuse me, let me start over. Committee action items, including approval of the September meeting minutes and UW-Milwaukee Bachelor of Science in American Sign Language English Interpreting. This program responds to the demand for interpreting professionals in a variety of educational and community settings. The program elevates a submajor and will ensure graduates are qualified for one or both state interpreting licenses. Also from UW-Milwaukee, a Master of Science in Digital Supply Chain Management. This program is specifically designed not only for topics in supply chain management, but to understanding emerging digital technologies, including Internet of Things, blockchains, sensors, digital twins, cloud architecture, enterprise resource planning, big data, and analytics. We approved an academic unit realignment proposal for UW River Falls, which will reorganize 2 existing colleges into 1 new College of Education, Business, and Allied Health, with 3 affiliated schools. This will not impact program array. It will decrease administrative costs, balance the distribution of students, and increase opportunities for interdisciplinary programs. Next, we discussed the Wisconsin Partnership Program's annual report and approved 4 appointments to their oversight and advisory committee. Dean Robert Golden from the UW-Madison School of Medicine and Public Health highlighted how financial year 22, the WPP awarded 41 new grants totaling $18.5 million to support 124 active programs and initiatives in research, education, and community partnerships. We then discussed strategic enrollment, looking at 2 strategies that impact students at different points along their educational and occupational journeys: credit for prior learning and dual enrollment. We explored credit for prior learning through the experiences of returning adult learners and how they interact with UW institutions across their lifespan. First, Diane Rusk from the UW system defined CPL and the rationale for pursuing it, given the enrollment trends and realities of the post-traditional student population. Lauren Smith from UW Whitewater shared lessons from the review of her CPL portfolio program. Next, Laura Pedwick from UW-Milwaukee explained a new CPL strategy to bridge the non-credit and credit coursework within specific curricular areas. The discussion concluded with action steps to scale the uptake and scope of CPL in the UW system. We then discussed dual enrollment, which provides high school students the opportunity to take college classes and earn college credit while in high school. Despite challenges, student participation in dual enrollment programs has grown significantly over the past decade and is a practice that enjoys bipartisan support. It has the potential to serve more students and communities, expand UW enrollment pipelines, and better prepare students to transition to success in college. UW La Crosse Provost Betsy Morgan facilitated the discussion. The DPI leadership team explained dual enrollment program option structures and differences in student participation in proposed recommendations. Ben Passmore and Tracy Davidson from UW System shared overall data and demographics of high school students earning UW credit within the context of Wisconsin Technical College program that currently enroll many more students. John Dobbins from UW Oshkosh and Danielle Fagan from UW Superior shared examples of how their campus-specific dual enrollment programs, along with a UW-Madison student, graduated from UW Green Bay's concurrent enrollment program. We concluded with action steps that the UW system can take to increase dual enrollment participation and access through, first, internal coordination; second, enhanced partnership with stakeholders, including DPI, WTCS, and high schools, and legislative advocacy. And I might just add extemporaneously, I was very encouraged by what we heard, the feedback we got from the legislatures on their eagerness to help us be successful with this program and to find easy legislative fixes where there are. In sum, Regent President Walsh and President Rothman, in alignment with the UW strategic plan and in concert with other initiatives like direct admission, the tuition promise, and online learning growth, these strategies can help the UW system meet the needs of both the next generation of Wisconsin students and more broadly, the state of Wisconsin. This concludes my report. Therefore, I move for the adoption of board resolutions C1 through C5.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Yes, Regent Walks. Excuse me, Regent Walks, could you move the, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
I'd like to say that I was quite impressed with the fact that some of the legislators were here yesterday. Coming from the legislature, when bills come in front of legislators, they are at 10,000 feet and they don't understand with much particularity what really goes on with some of these programs. And I think the more that we can bring legislators into this process, the better, because I think that was a really good step. I'm not sure what the history, when I was in the legislature, I don't believe, well, I'm sure that I was never invited to a Board of Regents meeting with one exception when there was one in my hometown. And I think the more that we can communicate openly with the legislature, the better. And it was a wonderful step.
Yes, absolutely. Opening those channels. And I think Regent Weatherly, that was your idea, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was a pretty simple idea. I'll tell you the quick story, the genesis of it, Dana, which is we were having lunch planning for this meeting. And we talked about how we would need cooperation from the legislature. And me being new to this whole thing, I'm like, well, why don't we just invite them into the meeting and so help them understand some of the challenges? And is there a reason we wouldn't do that? And no one had a reason why we hadn't invited them. And then we checked with Jay and his staff and they said the same thing. So I thought it was a very productive, just dumb luck, but it first step.
No such thing as dumb luck, actually. All right. Any further discussion or questions? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Now a forward pass to Regent Rye for the cap planning and committee. Thank you.
Happy to back clean up. Thank you, Regent President Walsh. The Capital Planning and Budget Committee met to consider 5 resolutions, receive semi-annual reports on leasing and the UW Managed Design and Construction Program, and hear an update on the 2023-25 biennial capital budget. The committee commenced the meeting with item D, the consent agenda, which includes 3 UW managed capital projects, 7 all agency program projects, and 2 minor facilities renewal program projects. The committee approved all the consent items. Next, the committee considered a request to purchase a 5.92 acre parcel of land and a 76,541 square foot building by UW Madison, approximately 2.5 miles west of the campus, for $14.2 million. Acquisition of the proposed site and building provides parking and swing space for the demolition of or renovation of existing buildings on the main campus faster than is currently scheduled. It's important to note that the furniture is actually included in that price, so we felt it was a pretty good deal. Item E was approved by the committee. The committee considered item F to complete design and construct renovations to Granger Hall on the UW Madison campus. The project will upgrade and modernize the 2nd and 5th floors to accommodate program growth in the Wisconsin School of Business's undergraduate and graduate programs at a total project cost of $10,400,000 gifts and grants. The committee approved the item. Next, the committee discussed and approved item G to increase the project budget for the new computer data and information sciences building project at UW Madison to accept bids. And the board previously approved the project budget at a total cost of $230 million in December of 2021. Early phases of the project have been completed, including the demolition of 2 facilities buildings to clear the site for the future building. The project was released for bid, and due to continued increases in material costs, increasingly tight labor markets, and ongoing supply chain disruptions, bids exceeded the project budget. After much consideration, UW Madison elected to proceed with the project and requested that the board approve $37 million increase for a total project cost of $267 million. Item H, on behalf of UW Stevens Point, requests authorization to construct the Albertson Hall replacement building. Project constructs a replacement building on the same site as the current Albertson Hall. The facility design will support high-density book storage systems and an open floor configuration to accommodate the new learning commons, student success center, and associated support spaces. The reconfigured spaces will include the creation of a new one-stop space for student service support including relocating the registrar, bursar, and financial aid offices from other locations on campus. The new building, coupled with the demolition of the Park Student Services Building, will actually reduce overall square footage by 100,000 gross square feet on the main campus. Chancellor Gibson provided the committee with rationale for the new facility and how it would impact current and future students, as well as align with his three main strategic goals. The committee approved the item. As part of the semi-annual leasing report, the committee was given a synopsis of the three public-private partnership projects in process at Parkside, Superior, and Oshkosh. Pat Rebels, Design and Construction Project Delivery Director, provided an overview of the UW Managed Capital Program. The program has reached an overall value of nearly $530 million since its inception in July of 2015. He presented a PowerPoint of ongoing completed projects in the last year at Green Bay and Madison. And finally, Alex Rowe provided an update on the 2023-25 capital budget request. Although inflation has been more moderate in its upward trajectory since July of 2022, recalculation of project budgets based upon updated feasibility studies and new project schedules have not significantly altered the overall capital budget request. The Department of Administration has recommended longer project schedules, thereby pushing out bid dates and into the future, compounding inflationary impacts. The board approved a $2,473 million request, and the newly revised total is $2,435 million, a change of about $38 million downwards. The Capital Planning and Budget Office submitted updated project budgets to DOA on Monday, November 27th, and will work with them to advance the budget request. That completes my report, and I now move Resolution D, which includes D1, D2, D3, D4, and D5, and resolutions E, F, G, and H.
Thank you. Is there a second? Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Regent Wright. Next on the agenda, we have a panel discussion on the Dairy Innovation Hub's research and partnerships. In 2017, the UW system hosted a dairy summit, and it brought together dairy leaders from Wisconsin's production and processing industries, along with researchers and instructors from UW universities to identify industry needs in several areas. That summit led to the Dairy Innovation Hub, which receives $7.8 million in state funding annually for research and development at UW Madison, UW Platteville, and UW River Falls to help keep Wisconsin's $45.6 billion dairy community at the global forefront. Over the past 3 years, the Hub has funded more than 130 research projects and hired 15 faculty at the 3 universities. They research topics and teach classes related to dairy production and processing. In other words, they're engaged in research that helps everyday Wisconsinites in the agriculture industry. It's part of what we do, putting the Wisconsin ID into action. Today's panel, moderated by Heather White, a professor in the Department of Animal and Dairy Sciences at UW-Madison, and the faculty director of the Dairy Innovation Hub, will take a closer look at the impact of the Hub on Wisconsin's farms and businesses. I'll ask our panelists to join us at the table and turn things over to Heather to start us off with introductions.
Thank you. Good morning. And thank you very much for the opportunity to join you. I'm excited to give you an update on the Dairy Innovation Hub and what we've been doing across the 3 campuses. So as was said in the introduction, my name is Heather White. I'm a professor in the Department of Animal and Dairy Sciences. By training, I'm a dairy cattle nutritional physiologist. So I study how to feed cows so that they can make healthy milk product for consumers while having less feed, less impact on the environment, and of course, keeping farms sustainable and the cows healthy. In 2019, I was appointed as the inaugural faculty director of the Dairy Innovation Hub, and it has been my honor and pleasure to serve in that role since that time. Before I introduce the panelists, I'd love to give you a little bit of an update about what we've been doing and share some of the outcomes. Now, I know 3 years ago, you interacted with the deans of the 3 campuses that are involved in this, and you receive our annual report every year. But we hope to give you a little bit more context to that today. So first, what does dairy mean to the state of Wisconsin? I always love to provide some perspective on what we're talking about because dairy is so unique and important in Wisconsin. Our state has just over 6,200 dairy farms. And while we have seen that number decrease over the years, this is still far more farms than any other state has. Across those farms is about 1.274 million cows, which is half as many as we had in 1950. Yet they still make 31.7 billion pounds of milk annually. This is notable because this milk is helping feed not only our state, but we see a lot of milk exported across the country and globally. We are the first nationally in cheese production, something we're very proud of, and second nationally in fluid milk production. Wisconsin's dairy is also very important to our state's economic viability. Every cow in Wisconsin generates about $36,000 in economic activity per year, 157,000 jobs in our state, and it means $45.6 billion in economic activity to the state. So in other words, dairy is more important to Wisconsin than citrus is to Florida. So what is the Dairy Innovation Hub? For anyone who needs a reminder or maybe is less familiar, there's two really key unique aspects of the Dairy Innovation Hub. This is a $7.8 million a year state investment in dairy, uniquely, not just here at UW-Madison. It is across our 3 campuses that have colleges of agriculture and other related sciences that encompass dairy-related topics. So these 3 campuses have been able to work together, which we'll showcase for you more, and we're able to support research, teaching, and outreach related to dairy at all 3 campuses. Another very unique aspect of this is that it's not just about the cow herself, but rather it's about everything related to dairy farming. It is about stewarding our land and water resources, the land that provides for those farms that the farms are on and that we're all working to sustain, not just in our state, but across the world. It's about growing farm businesses and communities. It's about the research, teaching, and outreach that helps our farms feed into the economy and continue to provide food. It's about animal health and welfare and enhancing those aspects which are key to so many of us that interact with the cow herself. And it's about enhancing human health and nutrition. So thinking about the consumers of those products, not just the products that we like, so niche marketing of products that appeal to consumers, but also the role that dairy products play in human health, whether it's in a disease state or in preventing those disease states. So how did we get here? This is a process you all have been involved in, but it's also been a long process. The Dairy Summit was mentioned, and this idea was something that was born out of a lot of conversation many years ago. But to bring that to reality and to action takes a lot of very dedicated people. This process went through legislative approval and had many stakeholders that were passionate about it and was approved in 2019. We then distributed our first research funding in January of 2020, sorry. So very quick to take action on that and have continued funding projects since. Each year, we have an annual report, which we present to you, and thankfully you share out with the Joint Finance Committee, which also sees that report annually. We have continued to fund research projects with 2 thoughts in mind. One is some short-term victories. So projects that we can fund now that help answer pressing questions that our farms, cheesemakers, and other stakeholders are facing, but also with long-term vision. So hiring faculty members and bringing the best and brightest here to Wisconsin so we have the resources that we need. Over the last few years, some of our accomplishments are, as was mentioned earlier, the funding of over 130 projects across the 3 campuses and balanced across the 4 priority areas. This is key because these funding decisions are made through peer review processes on our campuses, as we would expect as research universities, and take time and interrogation to fund our colleagues doing great science. And those projects often also train undergraduate and graduate students. We have had 15 faculty searches, and we've attracted top talent to all 3 of the involved campuses. These projects and faculty have already leveraged $4.1 million in leveraged grant funding. In other words, the small projects that we're funding have led to data that is used to seek out external funding from federal sources like the USDA or NIH and external funding sources from industry. We know that there are several $1 million in grants that are also being considered now, so we only anticipate this number to grow. These research projects have collectively resulted in about 183 journal publications in 3 short years. So anyone who's been involved in research knows you first have to write the grant and get it funded. Next, you have to actually recruit the student and get the work done, analyze the data, and then write it up. So the fact that we already have nearly 200 research publications from this work should show you the enthusiasm that people are approaching their research in this area. These projects are moving very quickly, and we couldn't be more proud of that. We have engaged 421 students across the 3 campuses. These are students that are working on projects that wouldn't exist without this funding, and they're getting opportunities to get real experience, hands-on experience that complements what they're already learning in their classes. And Hub-funded faculty and staff have given almost 300 presentations. So we're taking very seriously presenting this work out to the end users and to the scientific community to help spread the results of the research. So some additional wins or accomplishments that we've had is that we're now approaching steady state of structure and operating principles. I don't have to tell this esteemed board that that takes time and it takes thoughtful consideration, and that hiring 24 faculty does not happen overnight across 3 campuses. So these are things that we've been very careful to consider and lay out plans and strategies on, and we're happy that we're approaching a steady state. We've had collaborative initiatives across the 3 campuses, which is something that we've seen at a scale much larger than we've seen before. And it's very exciting to see the product of that, and that those collaborations are now happening very organically. And we'll share some of the examples of that with you from our panelists. We've had partnerships with WISIS and WARP on patents and inventions, and we've already had patents submitted from each of the 3 campuses out of dairy-related or Dairy Hub funded research. And we've engaged an external advisory council of stakeholders, which continue to be dedicated and meet quarterly, as well as having a steering committee on each of the 3 campuses. So we're not making any of these decisions in a silo, rather taking in information and insight to help steer us on our route. So before I introduce this panelist, which as I'm sure you really want to hear from, I'd love to have the opportunity if there are any questions or thoughts before we jump into some discussion.
I think we're ready for you to jump.
Great. So I'll go through and have each of the panelists introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about themselves, why they're here, what their role is, and then we will have discussion. So Andy, if I could start with you.
Okay, Andy Buttles, dairy farmer from Lancaster, Wisconsin. I guess the short answer is I'm on the UW-Platteville Steering Committee. I guess a little more historical answer. I was at the meeting in 2017, and shortly after there was a lot of discussion on what we really could do. And a group of farmers sitting around their office had come up with the idea of the hub, really a real rough draft at that point. And then shortly after that, a group of us were on the governor's task force, the Dairy Task Force 2.0. We brought that idea to the task force, and everybody on it liked it. It was actually the #1 idea that came out of that task force, moved on, made it through the legislature, and here we are. And for me, it's really cool because, you know, from 2017, not even being an idea yet, to now we've actually completed a study on our farm. So Platteville faculty have been out to the farm, done all the legwork, done all the research on the farm, and now they're already to the point where they're starting to collaborate the research. So for me, that's why I'm here. It just kind of come full circle already, and it's really kind of cool. So.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Kaylee.
All right, my name is Kaylee Reesgraff. I grew up on a dairy farm outside of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. So I was helping my mom feed calves every day, 4 o'clock in the morning and then after school. And when I graduated high school and went to college and moved away, my mom built a brand new calf barn, and that included 6 automatic calf feeders. So it took 6 automated calf feeders to replace this automated calf feeder right here. Yeah. So I went to UW River Falls for my bachelor's degree, and I got my bachelor's in dairy science. In my senior year, my current advisor at Madison reached out to my advisor at River Falls and said, hey, we need someone from River Falls in dairy science to come here and do a master's degree at Madison through the Dairy Innovation Hub. And honestly, I had never heard of graduate school before. I was kind of on a fast track to veterinary school. And when my advisor explained what graduate school was and the opportunities that it would present, I very readily said yes, and I was very interested in the position. So I am one of the first graduate students that the Dairy Innovation Hub has fully funded. So that's really awesome. I am collaboratively mentored by UW-Madison and UW River Falls professors. So I have 6 people on my committee, which if you've gone to graduate school, that's a lot of people on your committee, a lot of people to please. I am a semester away from graduating with my master's degree, and I'm doing research in dairy heifer nutrition. So that includes environmental, economic impacts on the farm.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kaylee. Paul.
Good morning. Paul Bauer from the Ellsworth Cooperative Creamery. Grew up on the west side of Wausau and very much a product of the UW system, having graduated from River Falls. Ellsworth is unique in that we sit about 9 miles from the Minnesota border and 12 miles from UW River Falls. Half of our management staff is from River Falls, quite a few graduates from Stout, and then the rest of the universities as well. The co-op's been in existence since 1910, so we're going on our 113th year. Since I took over, we've had pretty significant growth. We started at about 100 million, and we'll do about 350 million in sales. Our employee growth went from 60 to around 340 employees, and we have 4 sites within the state of Wisconsin. We very much need the UW system to help propel our creamery to do more things within the world. I always find it strange that we're exporting product to around the world. And if you look at Wisconsin, or particular Ellsworth, you couldn't get a farther spot to export anywhere, any product to overseas, particularly China. And yet here we are. So very much the entire industry is very glad to see that the universities are working together. It will pay huge dividends for the entire industry in the state of Wisconsin.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Luis.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Luis Peña Levano, currently assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin River Falls and affiliated with University of Wisconsin-Madison. Just to give a little bit of background of why actually I started doing dairy is because I'm originally from Peru. And in Peru, we actually don't have fluid milk as we have it here. Over there, most of the milk comes from powder. So when I started my undergrad, I actually did food science engineering. And my thesis was on dairy because I was always curious about it. So when I did I graduated from Zamorano University at the time. Then years later, I started my career in applied economics at Purdue University. And part of my thesis was in climate change. And in my dissertation, one thing that actually struck me that it really surprised me was the effect of future climate change impacts on the dairy industry. So once I started to become faculty at another university, one thing that really gave me this attention of trying to come to the University of Wisconsin were actually 3. The first one is the work environment of the university was highly recommended by my colleagues. So when this position opened, I knew that that's actually where I wanted to belong. The second was because it gave me the access in terms of research to also belong to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which provided me a huge advantage in terms of research. And the third one is that as I'm also first generation, it could give me the effect of trying to impact now and give back to the community. So once I came to the University of Wisconsin River Falls, I think that I did the best decision I could have made. And I think that my students and I have been trying to work together to actually to show what they actually can showcase.
Great, thank you. So we'll jump right in here to some discussion. So please, I might call on one of you to start, but feel free to build off of each other. So one of the unique aspects of the hub is that it does span the 3 campuses, and we have enhanced collaboration across them. So Andy, given you live very close to one of the campuses and you've worked with researchers across the 3, could you start by giving us your perspective on what this collaboration has meant for you as a dairy farmer and for other dairy farmers?
Yeah, one of the things we never imagined is how well it bring the 3 campuses together. There's always been a lot, they've known what work everybody else is doing, but this has really brought a lot of collaboration, because like one of the grad students that was working on our project was actually just an undergrad at the time, and now is pursuing grad school here at Madison. And the River Falls group is talking to the Madison group more, and they're just really find ways to collaborate. And that's really exciting, because there's a lot of each campus has its own unique abilities. And when you bring them together, it's just really cool to see how this has brought a group of people together more so than ever had worked together before. And I think it's been especially important, like being on the steering committee by Platteville, they haven't had a big history of doing research, so that do research there, the help they get from Madison is really important. That collaboration is huge, and it's just going to allow a lot more research to be done. And one of the things like this in the kind of planning this, we were talking a little bit, and there's robots at the Platteville farm where now maybe a researcher at River Falls can utilize that information, and they can utilize each other. So it's just really encouraging to see how well everybody can work together.
Great. You mentioned students, and Kaylee shared with you all that she is one of the first collaboratively funded grad students, or one of the first graduate students at all. So the spending plan for the Dairy Innovation Hub included funding trainees such as graduate students and postdocs. And when we set out to do the graduate program request for proposals, we had this idea that wouldn't it be great if we harnessed our top undergrads from Platteville and River Falls and brought them to Madison to work on a collaboratively funded project. So Kaylee, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what it means to have 6 mentors, but also what opportunities you've had through that program that maybe some of the other graduate students you see don't have.
It means a lot of Zoom calls. So I have 2 professors on my committee that are from River Falls, and then 4 that are from Madison. And they had never really met each other before they all had to mentor me. So during our meetings, it's a lot of getting to know each other's expertise. And actually, one of the things that just recently came out of our last committee meetings was a little more collaboration outside of me too. So they're getting to know each other's strong areas and asking for help in their research. I also think I have kind of a cool perspective having gone to River Falls. There was not a lot of research going on, especially not undergraduate research. And like I had said, grad school was never really talked about much. So now when I go back to River Falls for like Dairy Innovation Hub Summit, I get to reconnect with those professors, and they are actually doing a ton of research, and they're able to bring graduate students in to help out with that research. Those undergraduate students are being exposed to what graduate school could possibly be like. And then I also get to connect with them and say, hey, this might be another option if you're considering vet school, or, if you're interested in continuing with school, but don't necessarily want to pay the vet school bills. So collaboration has definitely improved between River Falls and Madison.
Great. Speaking of River Falls, Luis, you are new faculty at River Falls. So what has this collaboration enabled for you, and what does it mean for things like grant proposals or data availability?
Thank you. I think that the first thing that I learned was I have, for example, one of my colleagues, Dr. Chuck Nicholson. He was the first person that I actually started to work with. And I feel that actually he helped me to mentor me in how to write proposals. So the first proposal that we got was thanks to him and his leadership. And we got actually one from the Innovation Hub to evaluate and improve the farm bench program. But thanks to that idea, I was able to start connecting with different professors. And so I took the risk to create a $250,000 proposal for the USDA Sustainable Research and Education Grant. And I decided to invite with this experience to land-grant universities, the University of Georgia, North Carolina State University, Texas A&M, and University of Minnesota. However, University of River Falls was actually a leader at the time. We were successful, and with that, we obtained funds to provide 3 students in River Falls, and at the same time, 2 graduate students, one from Georgia and one from Texas A&M. That project is actually ongoing, and it's about robotics. And since that point, because of the collaborations that we started building, we have right now, I have in my hands 6 projects. From them, 2 were initially, for example, as Kaylee mentioned, one of them was with the mentorship. So one of my students that started with me creating the pilot project of the dairy side, of the robotic side, now she is going to have the opportunity to go now to graduate school. And as in the case of Kaylee, before that, her initial idea was to go to become a housewife. I remember that was the first thing that she mentioned. And now, if you see, only 1 year later, she is now planning to go to be a researcher in the graduate school in such a prestigious university. In that regard, now I have in only 1 year, 5 students that are working with me. And many of them actually already changed their minds to go to graduate school, and now they are thinking to go to Cornell, to go to UC Davis. And the opportunity that actually the Dairy Innovation Hub gave us in order to foment this change of mind and try to help them to go above of what they were thinking originally is actually such an amazing experience. And currently we have, with my collaborators, we already obtained about $450,000, and we have submitted already 2 different grants, one that is about $620,000 for USDA, and the other for $320,000 to evaluate also the dairy industry, not only Wisconsin and Minnesota, but also to expand it to nationally. So in that regard, the Dairy Innovation Hub has helped me to improve, not only to be a leader in this state, but also to start showing what can happen nationally.
Wonderful. You mentioned a lot about students. When we talk about research outcomes, the obvious one is the data and the results that come out of it. But another one that sometimes we ignore is that we're producing well-trained students that then go out and work in the dairy community or go on to graduate school, vet school, professional school of that type. So Paul, maybe you could comment on what that pipeline of trained students at all the levels, bachelor's, master's, and potentially higher means to you and your company.
Well, we certainly rely on UW River Falls and the Dairy Center. Michelle Farner in particular, I'll give a shout out to her. We work very closely with her. She brings students in. She also identifies students for us. In some classes, we'll hire 4 to 5 graduates in order to come forward. We do have a small problem in that traveling 12 miles from school is not the ideal situation for some graduates. So we still have that stigma of not being, Florida or California or something like that. But we try our best to retain students in the area, but that allows us to grow a huge pipeline. And I really want to emphasize this, that, we've had phenomenal growth at the creamery, but we still process the same amount of milk approximately that we did 15 years ago, yet have almost 280 more employees. We keep adding value to every component that we have, and we can't do that without well-trained staff, knowledgeable in the dairy industry, in order to propel our growth for basically for exporting dairy products throughout the United States and the rest of the world. To put that in perspective, our little co-op, we are a small co-op with only 220 members. We have some milk in Minnesota, but our regional impact is over about $2.5 billion. And if you move that needle just 10%, you have $200 million of additional impact. So the investment by the UW Regents and system is very important. Keep Wisconsin very viable and keep that huge segment of the industry growing.
Great. Yeah, please.
So I would like you all to kind of put your thinking cap on and look 10 years down the road. what are going to be the main challenges faced by the dairy industry in 10 years? And how do you see yourself progressing and anticipating those things in the dairy hub?
I want to take that one if I could for, when we look at the environmental impact of dairy, there's a couple aspects, and I know this is even before the dairy hub was put into place. The dairy plant in River Falls is expanding to include wastewater and how to handle wastewater. That is a huge impact. Chlorides, getting chlorides out of the dairy processing stream is huge. If we can figure that out as a state, we will own the dairy processing sector. So that's very huge. Methane, getting methane out of the cows, there's some research in that, but how can we bring carbon neutralizing aspects of the dairy industry to the smaller level, not the $5,000 mega cows, but smaller level. We have a lot of areas that we can go after. And then when you look at what we can do with cheese and how we can further preserve that, one of the items that I don't think we realize is that 3/4 of the world does not have refrigeration. How do you get dairy products in an area that does not have refrigeration? And I'm going to say powdered milk is not a desired product all over the world, nor is it value added. It's a commodity. So how do we look at those? Sorry, I jumped in.
You're good. I can just add on, some of my research has to do with methane emissions. We have a machine that we can put in front of cows, or that they can go up to, that measures how much they are breathing out. So I think that's important to actually get like a baseline of what the environmental impact as far as methane emissions of cows are, right? To get the hard numbers behind that, because farmers are interested in that. And I think in the future, there will be an economic benefit to realizing your carbon credits as well, and being able to share those across different parts of the industry. So yeah, and farmers are stewards of the land, right? They want to steward the land well. And the research that we're doing right now is going to help them do that 10 years from now as well.
And speaking of the future, Kaylee, first of all, I'm sorry that the vet school lost you. I'm sure you're well aware of that we need more large animal veterinarians in the state. So that's just a plug for them. What are your plans after you graduate next May? Are you going to go on with graduate work? Are you going to work for a while? What's your path?
Right now, I'm thinking about joining the industry as a dairy nutrition consultant. I don't necessarily have a specific company right now. I've been talking with a few, but I really want to get back to interacting with farmers every day, and the knowledge and the experience that I've gained. And I guess that's part of being mentored by 6 different people. There's a geneticist on my committee. There's an animal behavioralist. I get to do mammary gland physiology work along with the nutrition. So I think I've gained like a wide variety of skill sets, and I really want to go out into the industry and utilize those and help farmers. That's been my goal all along, really, is to help farmers. So
Great. Well, I hope you encourage some of your colleagues in Madison or River Falls, the vet school. Good price over there. We have Illinois students that come here because it's cheaper. Chris.
Able to even talk about dairy, because here I am, a dairy farmer, and instead of looking 10 years forward, I'd just like to briefly, I've been on the farm for close to 50 years. When I graduated from Minnesota, I married this cute farmer with 40 cows. And we thought we were doing really well. And the perspective there were 50,000 dairies in Wisconsin 50 years ago, 50,000. And in all that time, the industry has condensed and changed. And now we have 6,000 dairies or whatever it is. And the cows are milking more than they did then. My daughter characterizes what a dairy cow in Wisconsin is, an Olympic athlete. And the reason you have to have these people to do this is that these cows, they're truly Olympic athletes. They have to produce, they're producing 3 to 4 times as much as our really good cows did back in the dark ages. So the point I would like to make is that, and first of all, my herd manager is from graduate of River Falls, fabulous. And he's got a long career ahead of him. And what I'd like to ask of you guys is how much collaboration do you do with industry? Because most of as we grew from 1998, we had about 50 cows and now we have 1,000. As we grew, the industry, the Lely robot company, all the different companies, they were the ones that the university is super important, but I'd like to hear about any collaboration that you are doing with industry to help make sure that we're all viable and working together. And the perspective of how this industry has changed over 50 years is truly remarkable. And I know Paul used to be our CEO at Burnett Dairy.
Thank you. Actually, if I can answer that question, thank you very much actually for your kind words. I want to mention that in my case, for every grant, one of the reasons why they have been so successful, it has been because we count with advisory committees from the industry. So we had dairy farmers. We also have, and just to mention, also to complement Regent Walsh answer, in my case, I'm working with robotic milking and the feasibility of adoption at all scales, from large farms, small farms, medium farms. So in order to create that project, we actually asked people that were experts in Lely, and we also, one of our students was actually working with the Leval, and now the other student that we have work with Lely. So actually we have also that strength. We also have a couple of dairy farmers, not only from Wisconsin, but also from Minnesota, to provide actually a better perspective. And it has been actually a growing effort. So we have been trying to actually keep that reality, especially because working with them have given us actually the idea. In fact, the first idea of this, my first grant, was thanks to a request. Someone wanted to know about how feasible it was to implement a robotic milking in their farm.
Thank you.
If I may, Regent Peterson, I'll add to that as well. So across disciplines, our industry recognizes that we are a great source of unbiased research knowledge and also of students that we're training. And so industry across the disciplines come to us for that information. They come to us to recruit our students. And they also recognize that there's a cost and an input of that. And so we have a lot of projects, as Luis described, where industry companies may be a funding source or a collaborator on a federal grant. And more we see those federal grants require that stakeholder participation. And so that helps make us very competitive compared to our colleagues at other universities that don't have those relationships with stakeholders, either the end user or companies, or other aspects of the community. So it really gives us a strength.
The dairy infrastructure in Wisconsin is truly remarkable. Helps to do that.
Yeah, I think
That's really the whole idea, was that, if you want to know about dairy, you come to Wisconsin. And as a group of producers, we really want to make sure we retain the best and the brightest, because we don't want to lose that. Because, if the researchers are here, the industry's here, and it's all here, and we have it, and we really don't want to lose that, because from all over the world, if people want to learn about dairy, new things, what's going on, they come here. And that was really the whole idea, I think, of the hub in the first place. So.
Regent Bogus, I believe you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you so much. This is so interesting. And just to kind of follow up on what Regent Peterson was talking about, I know the last several decades, we've lost thousands. I think I read something like 40,000 dairy farms in the last four decades or so, and we're losing more last year. And I'm just wondering, given your existence, is that, I know it's probably not the core mission to keep dairy farms in existence, but has it had any impact to give them support and help to kind of flourish and not leave?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, we really want to be at all sizes, because if you look at Wisconsin, the rural economy is really supported by dairy. If you look at a lot of other areas, other states, they just don't have that strong rural economy. It's really the dollars coming in from dairy. So I think we really need to focus on a lot of research for middle and smaller size farms. And plus, of course, the environmental thing can't be understated either. It's really huge. So bigger isn't always better. I think in Wisconsin, there's an opportunity to capture more value added and maybe not go down the commodity path, so we can keep our farm size more moderate, more family oriented. I don't think we'll ever reverse that trend, but at least maybe we can help slow or maintain it.
I'd just like to add, having less farms, while it sounds horrible, is not bad. I'm going to say our milk quality has never been better in this state. We produce better quality cheese. We can export more. When I look at the quality of life of farmers that actually have more farms, more people, more cows, it's actually better than when I grew up. My dad never left. And you're not going to get farmers to commit to milking, 40 cows anymore and stay there 365 days. The challenge is, as we grow, is if you need 250 or 500 cows in order to be economically viable, how are we going to have that transfer or orderly transfer of economic assets to allow new entrants into the business? That would be it. We were talking pre-panel and we come up with like a million more ideas to study, but that's going to be a hindrance to growth of new entrants in the business. That's where I feel that we have the biggest Achilles heel. Not that the farms are getting bigger, because you can be successful at any size. Our co-op has as small as 15, as many as 1,200. And we try to make sure that we're equitable and they're all treated so they have an economic path. But the long-term growth is it's not going to happen. You're not going to have somebody commit to 365 days and milking 40 cows. It's just not going to happen.
Thank you.
Yes, Regent Jones.
What is the macroeconomic state of the dairy farm? Have the smaller farms gotten much bigger? Have corporations come in to purchase farms? How does that work? What's changed?
I love it when people say corporate farming is bad. The two largest corporate farms in the United States are organic. Okay, think about that. They're not in our state. Anybody that thinks a large corporation is going to come in, get at best an 8% return on their investment when all their productive assets can die at any time, they're crazy. This is a family enterprise. Nobody's going to touch this. Now, there could be other aspects to a myriad corporate strategies to perhaps hold land for long-term development to mirror with farms. But the reality is it's corporate farms in America are predominantly family corporate farms, and they do it for transfer of assets more so than anything other than those two large organic farms that are not in Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Yes, Regent Miller.
That right, certainly I worked in dairy industry, corporate farms. There's no more in Wisconsin. They're all family farms. They're just incorporated. But I think I just want to say that this presentation is great, but it underestimates the impact of dairy on the economy. And you had some great slides, but not only do you have workforce issues, herd managers, nutrition, large animal vets, you have bankers that are making loans. But as a former manufacturer, I just want to say that we relied on dairy farmers to buy our products, and I came from a 5th generation equipment manufacturer. I won't name the name. I don't own it anymore, so I could, but probably inappropriate. But I just want to point out, we had an HR manager who went to Whitewater. We had engineers from Platteville and Madison. We had manufacturing executives that got an executive MBA from UW Milwaukee. Our CFO was trained at UW Madison. We had middle management from Stevens Point, Oshkosh, Eau Claire, La Crosse. So my point is that the work being done here is necessary, but the bubble and the expansion of the employment that it creates by having a strong dairy industry is absolutely vital to Wisconsin's economy, especially the small towns that benefit from this. Chris and her dairy, her operation, they are spending their money in their local economy because they are doing well, as is their feed provider, as is their, every farmer has a banker, as is their banker, so I just want to point out that this is it's a great discussion, but it's also a discussion not only of these 3 schools that participate in this, but of all of the collective system and how they engage in this, in helping us be America's Dairyland. I'll get off my soapbox.
Can I follow up with
Sure,
that?
absolutely.
I mean, this is before the dairy hub, but had the opportunity to visit professors from around the world coming in, and particularly it wasn't Kazakhstan, it was one of the smaller areas. And they were talking about how I thought the UW system and bringing information out to farmers was one of our key assets to allow us to grow, because that information was disseminated right to the farm to allow them to grow, to propel us in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And we have to reinvent ourselves, which is exactly what we're doing here. And the interesting thing is they said, if we did that in our country, I'd be shocked. You think about that. They're only allowed to have information in the college and not bring it out to the masses. What a great system we have here, where we're actually trying to propel that and accentuate that, and the rest of the world doesn't have it. We need to celebrate what we have and appreciate that we have this system and enhance it and allow it to grow, because the rest of the world is looking at us and trying to figure out how they can replicate it.
All right, any other questions or comments for our panel? Yes, Regent Peters.
So I have one more comment. The one thing that everything you've said is why this works so well in Wisconsin. But at the beginning of your presentation, he talked about that now we're at $45 billion. And I have a sign in my office that was given to me in 2004 that has a cow that looks like a dollar bill. And it says Wisconsin, $18 billion of dairy activity, 3 times as much in less than 20 years that this industry's grown. It's really remarkable. And I think it's something that, well, of course I would, because I'm a dairy farmer, but I think it's something that is truly unique, and we just sometimes take it for granted.
All right, well, I want to thank you all for coming today for this update on the Dairy Innovation Hub. This is near and dear to the hearts of not only the people at the 3 campuses involved, but the rest of the state who likes to eat cheese and ice cream. And I count myself in that group. So thank you again for your work. We appreciate it. All right, our final item of business today is to consider proposed amendments to the bylaws of the Board of Regents, which were discussed and approved by the Executive Committee last week. The Board Office and Office of General Counsel have undertaken a review of the bylaws and have recommended several updates, which include reorganizing the document, standardizing terms, and removing duplicate language for greater clarity and conciseness, as well as adding some language to codify current practices. This proposal would also raise the threshold needed to amend the bylaws from a simple majority to a 2/3 majority, which is consistent with the current threshold needed to approve a one-time suspension of bylaws. The proposal also includes a new requirement that each standing committee have a charter approved by the board. If these changes are approved today, the board office will work with committees and their staff to develop documents outlining their responsibilities and priorities. The intent would be for these charters to be reviewed and updated on a regular basis to help direct and focus efforts on the board's strategic priorities. The final change I want to highlight is the removal of the Research, Economic Development, and Innovation Committee, known as READY. READY was established 10 years ago with the original purpose of highlighting the role of the universities in addressing the state's challenges through research and economic development activities. During the Executive Committee's meeting last week, we discussed alternatives for achieving this objective, including through full board discussions where all regents have an opportunity to hear from key stakeholders and to ask questions about the innovative partnerships and research happening at our universities. So while we really appreciate the folks that the READY committee brought in, there was also a strong feeling that it was something that the entire board should hear and be exposed to. So before we discuss, may I have a motion to adopt resolution 11.10, approving the proposed amendments to the bylaws of the Board of Regents?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, any discussion or questions about these changes? This isn't the sexiest work that we have to do as a Board of Regents, but it is a cleanup job that was long past due to be done. And I definitely want to thank the Executive Committee for drilling down on this, and also General Counsel and the Regent Office for their help with this, and also former Regent Olivia Woodmansee, who did a lot of legwork on this project. Questions, discussion? All right, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Before we adjourn, do any regents have any communications, petitions, or memorials to share? Okay, on behalf of the board and the UW system, we'd like to extend condolences to family, friends, and colleagues of Dr. Larry Schnack, who served as chancellor at UW Eau Claire from 1984 to 1998. Chancellor Schnack passed away late last month. As current Chancellor Jim Schmidt has noted, quote, UW Eau Claire would not be the innovative, rigorous, community-focused institution it is today if not for the visionary leadership of Dr. Schnack, unquote. Dr. Schnack was part of the UW Eau Claire campus community for 32 years, including 19 years of teaching and administrative work before becoming chancellor. His area of academic focus was general and organic chemistry, in addition to developing computer applications for chemistry. As chancellor, Dr. Schnack also worked to strengthen ties between the university and the Eau Claire community, an emphasis on community campus partnerships that continues today. Again, we would like to recognize Dr. Schnack's significant contributions to his university and the UW system and offer our condolences to all those who knew him. At this time, we'd also like to recognize the service of State Senator Alberta Darling, who announced late last month that she's retiring from the legislature to spend more time with family and friends. As an alumna of UW Madison and a former teacher, Alberta has been a devoted champion of education and of the UW system in particular throughout her 32 years in public service. We look forward to honoring her more formally at an upcoming meeting of the board, but want at this time to express our best wishes and sincere gratitude to Senator Darling for her friendship and advocacy throughout her distinguished career. And finally, I would like to thank the students who came today. And I'm guessing you came from Stevens Point. Is that correct? No? Okay, well, that's good. More campus activism, the better. We appreciate your civic engagement. And look forward to speaking with you about the things that concern you in the future. So thank you for coming today. Very much appreciated. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? All in favor? Aye. Be careful out there, folks. That is kind of spiking the ball.
Yeah. There you go.
You see-